I mean, I've really been enjoying some of the like virtual hangouts that we've been organizing, and I've always had a pretty dispersed group of friends and industry network folks, and so it's actually really nice. Like I'm seeing people's faces more often than I normally would, which is certainly nice. And I'll be really curious to. It feels like there's a lot of activity right now, like in the next month or so. And I was trying to figure out if it was because things got concentrated, that this was how long it took everyone to get kind of their ducks in a row, to go virtual, or if like it's just going to become the norm that because hosting a panel is literally me like turning a camera on in my living room, whether there'll just be even a greater ability to do participation and that there will be that many more panels.
Yeah.
And we're talking about how like normally in a month we would not be doing 3 panels in the same month, right? But she's doing, I mean, she's on like, I think she said she was doing 13 panels inside 2 weeks. I was like, I do not envy you.
I'll start saying no maybe after a few, I think.
What are the other panels you'll be speaking on? Do you know already?
I believe I'm doing a talk at the Real Time Conference in June, the first week of June. And there's a couple of other things, and Jonathan on here actually could probably, he dipped off he could probably tell me where else I'm speaking. I'm trying to remember. I'm not the best at pre-advertising.
All my pre-advertisement happens 24 hours in advance. That's the very
Little LinkedIn blow up. Yeah. How about you, Angela? Has been many panels and conferences or?
Yeah, there have been a lot of panels, it seems. It's pretty much been one a week. It's actually kind of funny. An hour or two ago, I hopped onto like a panel prep, and I thought it was for this panel. So when the technical person's like, who's moderating? Both of us, 2 people said, I'm moderating. And I'm like, oh, wait, what is this for? And it was actually for AWE for next week. So I was like, oh, sorry. I'm not trying to take control. So yeah,
a power play, Angelo. I like it.
No. No one's listening, right? I am a fascist. Oh, just to my children. So yeah, no, it's been, it's not quite the same, right? I mean, you have the Slack channels for the networking on the side, or you have, one-on-ones or random breakout rooms. So it's nice to see the creativity in terms of people trying to kind of mix things up. But I think I was telling you, Sarah, a couple of weeks ago, I was supposed to be in LA for a conference, and it was just like, right? It was just, besides the bioluminescence, right? I just felt like I missed out on so much more. But this is what we can do. So it's been working out okay. So I'm winding down, thankfully. I've been on a panel a week pretty much for the last 6 weeks.
Now you're about to go into rest. Yeah.
Oh, I'm actually looking forward. I think after AWA, I have one more on my calendar, and then I think it's okay, so maybe it's just the summer solstice.
That's great.
But no travel plans.
I think Joanna just joined as well, although she's saying.
I actually re-forwarded the link to Joanna. So.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
And on your HP account if you are looking for it, or at least it should be in a second.
Forward this to Joanna. And then I think as soon as Joanna joins, we can start then.
I'll be right back.
I don't think Victor's going to do it.
You're having your kitchen be next to your panel.
We want you hydrated. So Victor, Nigel, are you in your outside veranda? It looks very LA in terms of you've got your wrought iron, you've got your luscious green things growing behind you.
This is actually the back end of the living room, so the stairs going down here, and so yeah, it's nice to get the sun. It's a naturally lit room, so you have to mix it up. Try and find both a mix of what's a good backdrop for these types of things versus where am I going to be safe from not too much intrusion from the kids. I think we'll see that's going to be maybe an underlying energy to this panel, the fear of a child jumping in or hopping over or wrestling me right before,
I think it is a total feature, not a bug, getting to see people's, not just kind of their work personas, but it's just like, oh, there's your cat or there's your child. And it's just like, hey, right? So
yeah, no, it's definitely been it's been great to see like my team just that little peek into to their personal life, and just the animal popping in.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Is your team dispersed, or is everyone mostly in LA, or is everyone all over the world for you?
There's actually, there's a majority in LA, but we do have quite a few folks kind of scattered throughout. We have some artists that are, New Zealand and Serbia and all sorts of random spots. But generally speaking, the core team is in LA. So so we're not all too far away from each other.
Cool.
I see a Joanna Popper.
Oh. Do we have audio? We're missing your audio, Joanna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now it works. Awesome.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Hi.
We've had a long preamble of our pre-panel.
We had a preamble. You went live? You did the green worm in live as a blooper?
We want to let the cat. We want to make it as participatory as possible and give anybody who wanted to see what the moderator and panelists actually do before they get up on stage. So
they watched you all get your hair and makeup done?
It's interesting for me. Unfortunately, Joanna is not showing up. I don't know if I see
Nigel.
I see everyone else, but for some reason she's just in an infinite loading for me.
That's weird.
It took a minute for her to come up on mine, but it might just be internet connection.
Interesting. Yeah,
Nigel,
I'll check to make sure.
You can admit it. You have me blocked on Digital Hollywood.
No.
I don't believe that anyone would block you for a second, Joanna.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
This is interesting. I've never had this happen before, where I feel like I'm left out on a line of communication.
I'm doing a special dance for you, Nigel. It's just for you, but you can't see it.
Actually, what we could have done at 10 o'clock is tuned into Sophie Tucker's daily dance-off. Worth tuning into if you're a Sophie Tucker fan.
Cool. We're at the top of the hour, just passed. I think we can start now that we've had our social time. So it's very good, our Zoom social time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please, you should be able to ask questions of the panelists. So feel free to kind of start in. I'm very excited that you could all be here, even if you can't be in person this year. I'm joined today by three super talented and creative people who know far more than I do about the AR, MR space. I'm just going to learn along with you, and I don't think I'm going to have to do too much, but we'll see what happens. So I think it's a super, obviously traumatic time for us, but also just like what's going to happen in the future, right? Besides the economy and society and politics, it's just like what's going to happen to our work-life balance, what's going to happen to events. Magically laid off half the people, Apple staying mum about what they're doing. So it's just like, what's going to happen in this space? As an investor, I'm extremely excited to, think about it some more with these like fantastic people. So if we could start just looking at my panel from left to right with Joanna, can you introduce yourself? And then we'll go to Sarah and then Nigel, and then we'll kick off with some Q&A and discussions.
Hi, sure. Angela and I are actually on the same team, so we know each other quite well. I'm also at HP. He's on the tech venture side. I'm on the virtual reality team. I joined HP about 2.5 years ago, primarily focused in the beginning all on location-based entertainment. And then I would say over the last 9 months or so, just focused on our go-to-market generally. Prior to being at HP, I was at NBC Universal for a long time, almost a decade, and then I was at Singularity University. So love being in this industry. We have a lot of really, really exciting things happening in the industry overall, and then specifically at HP. So excited to be here with my friends and colleagues on this panel.
Sarah?
Awesome. Hey, Joanna, good to see you too. Sarah Vick, I work for Intel Studios, Intel Studios is a leading immersive media studio here in Los Angeles. Typically, we are operating the largest volumetric capture stage in the world. These days, it is sitting a little dark, but expected to come back relatively soon. My role at Intel Studios is a mix between business development and also executive producing. So I work with a lot of creative teams to bring them kind of into our partnership and develop new content with them. I also am responsible for building a lot of our distribution partnerships and in terms of where we'll be publishing apps and experiences. So my world is really all about content these days and trying to get content into your hands so that folks can see more exciting stuff in the world of stay at home and stay safe and healthy.
Great.
Nigel?
Hey everyone, first great to be on the panel with you all. For those who don't know, I'm Nigel Tierney. I head up content for Riot as part of Verizon Media. I am Irish, by the way, it's why I sound like this. Not a good excuse for how I look, nothing particularly Irish about this attire. But anyway, I focus with the Riot team on bringing innovation within the content ecosystem for Verizon Media. So thinking about how we can take the next steps with our brands, as well as create immersive content for whether it be, although now very different, location-based experiences to bringing AR across all of the Verizon Media properties such as HuffPost, Yahoo News, etc. So really bringing 3D formats and how do those formats change with the opportunity of what 5G will unlock. So that's kind of been the focus and drive for Riot and Verizon Media for the past while now. So yeah, and I'm happy to dig in and talk about all the new tropes, the new norm and all of these things that we have to cope with now. So yeah, it's great.
Super. And then I'm Angelo Pieri. I'm a partner at HP Tech Ventures. I lead our investments in AR and VR. We did 4 investments in 2019. A couple of small software companies called Theia and Pixo, Ad Hoc Microsystems up in Toronto, Waterloo, which does eye tracking, and then Mojo Visions, which is an AR contact lens company, and looking forward to doing more this year. Before we talk about the pandemic and all the evil that it's wrought, I just wanted to kind of step back and say, like, hey, before all this happened, if we had this conversation in January at CES, let's say, if you thought back, like, what was some of the fantastic things you saw in AR and MR? And we'll stay away from VR a little bit for this conversation in terms of, like, that was a fantastic application of AR and MR. Anything that really came out to you for 2019?
Yeah, I have 2 examples that I was really excited about, and they're pretty different. One was actually Intel Studios' own AR exhibition together with the K-pop group NCT 127. It was an augmented reality music video that you experienced by going to their museum and being able to immerse yourself into it, that launched in December of 2019. It was our first major AR exhibition or location-based launch, so that was really exciting to see it be successful and actually really celebrated by that fandom. The other one that I was thinking about as we had talked about this, Angela, was actually the Apollo Washington Memorial launch, which was a projection mapped recreation of the Apollo launch. I'm a space nerd, as is demonstrated by my spaceman up here. And that creative team just did an incredible job of bringing people together and seeing a visual, like something visually spectacular. I think that they ended up gathering, I want to say like 300 or 400,000 people on the mall to watch it. It was and really something new and different and exciting. And I think it brought people's attention back to a really historic and important event.
Yep.
I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind. And when you were talking about mixed reality, there's a lot of different definitions that are used even in the industry for it. If you think of virtual reality as where you're entirely inside the headset, augmented reality where you're looking at digital digital overlaid into the real world, and then mixed reality being a combination where you're experiencing both a virtual world with the real world, and with the ultimate outcome of being that you can barely tell which is which. And so when I think about it from that point of view, some of the work that was done even in our location-based entertainment with our location-based entertainment players to create experiences that extended beyond what was happening in their venues. So some of the videos that were made by companies like Sandbox or Spaces, so that you could have your location-based entertainment experience inside the venue, but then take it with you with a fun, sort of mashup video of both first-person view as well as your real body, mixed in with your avatars. And I think both those two companies and others did a really good job with that. Extend the world of virtual beyond what was happening there. I was hi Sandra, I was just seeing your message pop up there. So that's an example of mixed with virtual, or that I think is really, really important to take what has been happening and make reach broader than who gets in and continue to learn about the venues and come to them when they all reopen after their temporary closures that are happening right now. And there's some other projects that I'm thinking about that we worked on with Dreamscape, for example. They did a really, really, really compelling, beautiful location-based entertainment experience with How to Train Your Dragons. So there are actually 3 different DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragons projects last year, one of which we actually participated with together with Intel. But I think that was technically more than a year ago, the one that we did with Intel. So I'm not calling it out but it did win a lot of awards during the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Happened about 15 or so months ago, but the awards happened in the last 12 months. But what Dreamscape did, which enable you to feel like you're flying, you're interacting, you're in a virtual experience, you're touching things in the real world, giving you that all the haptic sensation, using all the lessons that we've had for so many years from theme parks were really compelling in terms of really immersing you and allowing you to engage with your friends and family and just have an amazing time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, there are probably 2 things that come to mind. One was kind of the initial launch around the XR partner program within Yahoo News specifically, where they were able to start to onboard and serve as nearly like a platform to bring on other partners, whether it be Time and showcasing their moon landing experience that they had created, and other partners where we brought to life the Stonewall in riots and AR and things like that. So I thought where we got with that initial launch there was really exciting. I will say, although you kind of said not to mention VR, the thing that we were literally super excited, which was a partnership with Time and Digital Domain, which was at the DuSable Museum in Chicago. We premiered the March, which was recreating Dr. King in Martin Luther King Jr. in VR, so you could go and experience his speech. And there was a whole, it wasn't just that piece in VR, there's a whole sound bath experience, and there was a whole onboarding kind of moment where you could really come away with this empowered feeling of like how to empower the next generation of young voters. So I obviously something that was severely impacted by COVID-19 when you think about museum and location-based experiences and things like that changing. But that was something that we were really, really excited to be jamming on, and it was breathtaking.
Yeah, let me follow up on that.
VR. We all love it too much.
Yeah.
And the projects are too amazing.
Following up on that, super meaningful, right? With the museum, with Martin Luther King. Are there applications that you've seen with the pandemic, right? Because people have been so creative coming up with different things, repurposing things. Has there anything in the pandemic like struck you as like, wow, that's like so caring and just intelligent and insightful that someone's done that we should all know about?
Well, I think there's been some great people and great organizations rallying around just some some simple things in a way, like digitizing museums, right, and digitizing digital experiences for like AR DIY kits to fit, so you can do like at home cardboard activities with your children, things like that. You're seeing a lot of mixed reality and specifically AR trying to fill some of the void that's missing now in the world. Again, anecdotally, playing with my kid, even just some simple Snapchat filter games that he's controlling with his face and things like that. It's just I think there's a lot of people doing a round of collecting all of this experiences that already exist, and also a doubling down on creating new experiences. I know with us at Verizon Media, like the immersive platform as a whole is really doubled down in terms of execution, because it's actually kind of it's a system that can work well in work from home, right? Artists, CG artists, engineers, everyone's in their environments, just creating the assets, creating the tool sets. So now you can start creating, whether it's visualizing what 6 feet is in AR, right? Or just visualizing how the pandemic is affecting the globe, and just raw numbers and things like that. There's a lot of people and brands, including ourselves, that are digging into that.
It really feels like there's been kind of like two ways that AR has been leveraged by brands and companies, and you actually called out both of them for me. One was on the informative spectrum. My favorite example being the New York Times did this fantastic interactive scrolling article on like why 6 feet matters, why that's the distance that people are talking about. And it really helped to kind of add some nuance to, well, 6 feet is the number we're talking about, but 3 feet still matters more than 1, right? And that 12 is better than 6 in some ways. So I thought that the leveraging of augmented reality and mixed reality applications to bring information to people in a way that's like, and this is dull information, right? It's really, to get someone engaged on the topic of 6 feet is challenging. And I thought that, our companies like the New York Times and I know Yahoo did incredible, informative kind of visualization of where the pandemic outbreak was. That was great. That's been one genre. The other one is exactly like the opportunity to bring people together, right? And Snapchat lenses was also like my favorite. Along with being a space nerd, I grew up and I spent a lot of time in Boston, so I'm a Red Sox fan. And they have these lenses on Snapchat where you can go behind the green monster right now. And I was so thrilled. I mean, like I grew up, watching balls fly over the green monster with great thrill. And I think being able to have a moment of joy and exhilaration while still being home is important for us right now, right? To differentiate and to give us an opportunity to have something to look forward to.
There's a number of examples that come to mind for me, specifically on the HP side, and some of these are in the MR/AR world, and some are other technologies that HP's tapped into. I think what I've seen that's been really inspiring is how corporations have looked at, what are the biggest problems that we have, and then what are our resources, and how do we use those resources to address the biggest problems. So if you think about, what some of those big buckets are, it's healthcare. It's, right now, nearly 90% of students around the world are not in their schools. And then, and there's still the challenge for educators and students around, continuing to teach, to learn. And then the third is around work from home. And, the stats from what we've seen are 25 to 30% of workers believe that through 2021, they'll be at least partially working from home. And so, some of the things that HP did right away was, immediately our 3D printing and model lab team spun up to create parts for respirators, for masks, for ventilators, even door openers, and activated the HP printer, 3D printers and the printing network to get those out and spread the word so that hospitals could jump in and get the supplies when they needed it right away. So that's, on the healthcare side. On the education side, a large percentage of the population in the US, even in the US, only I think about 30% have one computer at home. And often the computer is not updated enough for distance learning and to log into all of the different platforms that the teachers and educators are asking students to log into. So we created something called HP Refresh, which is a software program that you can take an old computer, whether it's HP or any computer, and refresh it so that those students have access to their distance learning. And then the third is on our workstation side, for all the people working from home who don't have access to their very high performance computers to do their pipelines and workflows. We opened up our Z Central, which gives you access to remote into your computer from home for a 90-day free trial. So just immediately trying to get the help how we can help the healthcare system, how can we help the educators, and how can we help with the work from home situation. And then what I saw recently that I thought was really impressive, both in augmented reality and in virtual reality, was some of the training that's been done for doctors and nurses, both to get nurses up to speed on what's needed, kind of like 6 feet, or sort of obviously more targeted for specific healthcare workers, as well as bringing retired healthcare workers out of retirement and getting them up to speed. We know that training in VR and AR is so compelling, and the retention rates are so high. So seeing companies like Oxford Medical tap into that and work with hospital systems and healthcare systems like New York and other places to get people trained and ready to help take on the pandemic.
Thank you. So Sarah, Nigel, you'd mentioned a little bit before how your work mix is changing. Are there particular areas, while we're still in lockdown, right? Like eventually we'll have a vaccine and I hope we go back to a new normal, whatever that is. Yeah. But, advice or thoughts to other people, other creators who are like working in different areas, like where do you have to flow to kind of get things done?
Yeah, well, I think that even the conversation so far has reflected that pivot that we're making, right? The things we were talking about that we're excited about last year were these really ambitious technology, like bleeding edge technology use cases, be it at the DeSalvo Museum installation or a projection mapping that takes many months of preparation, and you're locating everyone on one place to actually witness it, and pivoting it towards like, what am I doing in my living room? And whether that's an education application or an entertainment one, I think that it has been the kind of our refocusing of trying to be as proactive and getting content and experiences and tools to people now. So for creators, I think that it's really important for them to be thinking about, how will this actually reach people in this normal? And because if you're going to wait for the new normal, I think there's so many open questions about when that will happen. I'm an optimistic person. I have complete confidence that we will come back to a world where we do go to movie theaters and go back to museums and see incredible installations. That will come back. But if you're thinking about launching a project in 2020, I'm definitely thinking about, okay, how does this get onto a digital platform? And it takes a lot of effort and design work to actually make things successful with the technology stack that's already in place, right?
Yeah. Oh, Nigel, I think your audio's off.
We could not.
Sorry, folks. Sarah, can you read lips as well? You said you're a space nerd.
Phrases, which is our "Can you hear me now?" That's a pretty common one now.
Joanna?
I'm okay on sound. I can't hear Nigel though.
Oh, I was wondering if you could read lips. So we'll wait for Nigel. We'll wait for you to come back. We'll carry on. All right.
I think he's working on a chat.
Yeah.
We've seen some of the things that we've seen, and the way I would describe it is, and the reason that we all come from fairly large companies who are investing a lot and see immersive computing as the future of computing. And I think some of the trends and not that we've been pointing towards, using immersive computing to for us to create, to connect, to learn, to collaborate, and to game. Those are like 5 of the big buckets that we look at, and I think some of those have been accelerated by what's happening right now. That we are expecting people to use VR and AR and MR to collaborate, and we're expecting, we've been, and that's what our companies have been planning for. But because of the current situation, some of that has been additionally accelerated. And so, like on our team, just to talk about our team, we have been using all of these collaboration tools over the past few months for everything. From everything from team meetings, staff meetings, presentations, maybe even new product new design reviews and quality reviews. To even we do these VR hangs because we no longer have the virtual water cooler that we would have had, in the past of walking down the hallway or grabbing a coffee with somebody. And so we do these VR hangs where we get together and go bowling and in VR and basketball, and we even fly, so we can do some things that we can't do together, even if we're in the real world. And we had one of our teammates experiment parties in VR because we couldn't all be together. And so I think the themes around VR collaboration and coming together to work on 3D models, for product design and product review, to come together and learn using 3D models, whether it's for enterprise training or for education, are trends that we were seeing in certain companies and certainly had already recognized clear ROI in terms of efficiencies and pipelines and workflows and saving money in terms of employees. But we're seeing that accelerate more and more, and we're both things that we're doing internally as well as things that we're doing with our partners and clients.
Thank you. Hey, Nigel, are you back?
Can you hear me?
Hey!
Am I back? Great. No, I'm waiting with bated breath to see if it worked. No, I agree with both Joanna there and Vicky, because I think there's really 2 ways to think about what's changing and how we're approaching it. Is there's the production side, right? And then there's the consumption side. So on the production side, obviously, physical isn't a thing anymore for now, right? If we're thinking about being on sets and things like that, where, that's just, it's not, there's definitely a lot of research and ways to figure out how we can go back to that environment in a safe way. But what does benefit from this environment, or what already works in this environment, is things like animation, right? Just the fundamentals of asset creation and that. So I think we really doubled our efforts in making sure that those pipelines that support that type of workflow, that's asynchronous and that's also like spread across the globe. That's been a big side of it. And then I think if we're looking at the consumption side, I'm pulling, more anecdotally from my home, but I'm seeing my son living his second life right now in Animal Crossing. I'm seeing, going to sell. I saw Travis Scott in concert with 12 million other people on Fortnite. So people are wanting not just, and maybe even just if we think about traditional content, like where Quibi, right, where it's now meant to be in a world where actually people want more content and not necessarily bite-sized content, where, we really need to figure out where are people living and actually serve content during that whole time. So that way I can binge a Tiger King. What's the AR version of that? What is the Last Dance or the Travis Scott concert? What's the ecosystem that I'm going to be continually going back to engage? And so, there's, in a way, there's going to be a swing, and obviously the environments and the connectivity and all of that will have to support it. But I do think there's a desire. If you do look at companies like Spaces, where they're doing their virtual VR, Zoom type calls and things like that, you're going to, there's going to be a desire to get to a pretty just an advanced ecosystem and environment for people to live in and feel comfortable in. I think that's something we've been trying to think about, as we're just deploying content. It's not just piecemeal, like, okay, great, that's cool, but on to the next thing.
So let's make believe, we fast forward 18 months, knock on wood, everyone in the world has a vaccine. We're kind of back to normal, but obviously we've had this exogenous shock and things have shifted, right? Like we're buying 25%, not 15% of goods online, and we're all working from home 2 days a week. What do you see as kind of, okay, we're going to have our glasses or contact lens or something, like what do you see as the biggest application for AR, MR? Is it going to be Snapchat, or is it going to be something different, like a better shopping experience when you go to the store because it's going to remember, what you put in your basket? What do you see as the future, or something, just something you're excited about? Like, this is my vision in 2 years and 3 years, and post-COVID, let's be happy.
Well, I think the things that will win are utility driven first. I do think, if I'm going to the store, right now I go to, again, in current COVID, I'm suiting up as if I'm going to fight some ninja war. But if I'm going in, when we're in a safe environment, my paranoia is still, it's going to be, it's going to have this time of what the next thing is going to be type of energy I feel in the environment. So, and I'm optimistic to try and get back to a world where I can be free. But I think utility in visualization will be key. So if I'm going to the store, I can see the, whether it's something a surface level, and this is, honestly kind of a bad pitch, but I can see the ingredients, or I can see the pricing without having to touch it, or I can just get some more context of information before I embark, before I put myself at risk, right? Potentially is a way now I might consider certain things. So what is that utility? And I'll say if, I don't personally have that answer. I think there's a lot of good opportunities to dig into that, but what is that utility? And then I think the entertainment value will come in after the fact, but figuring out that utility is important.
I hope you're wrong. And I hope we're not suiting up as ninjas in 18 months and we're just back to like, oh yeah, remember that? That was so weird. It was just this 6-month blip. I'm hoping.
I know, you know what? People are at the beach right now. People, we may all just forget this and back to high fives, but yeah.
I think it will really change the way that at least I'm seeing it change already, the way that some of my friends and family think about their digital worlds, right? And I've thought about, whenever I've framed augmented reality or mixed reality, I always describe it in terms of like improving the window into my digital world beyond this screen, right? Right now, my main interaction, like there's a digital world around me, and my main method of accessing it is through a rectangle that I carry in my purse. And I think what this pandemic has done is it's starting to push us to think differently about how blended are those worlds. One of my favorite experiences during this pandemic, I'm going to call out Jeff, who's actually on this chat, was being invited into Jeff's kitchen and learning how to make Maryland crab cakes. And just the level of kind of blending of what is digital, what is reality, I think will hopefully be carried into the future after this pandemic. And the particular area where I hope to see that application come to fruition is a passion of mine, which is around music. And I think the music industry in particular has been really celebrating and embracing its ability to come into people's homes in new and different ways that they never could before. Whether it's a Facebook live stream or just even the fact that I'm listening to music probably 5x of what I was before, because now it's on all day long in my home versus I'm standing around the office. So I think that there's opportunities to take that, what we typically saw as like, this is a concert in reality and this is a digital stream that I might access, and start blending those together. And we have some secret projects that are in that vein. So I'm hoping to continue to maybe even launch it in like late 2020, and we'll see if we can get things going. So that's what I'm excited about, and definitely putting my my muscle behind.
Joanna?
We will see a longer term impact on the way we work. That, you know, where there are many companies who and employees who have seen that the impact of working from home, which isn't even a normal working from home. We're working from home during a pandemic. It's not just the same as working from home right now. There's all these added stresses and people having children at home and having homeschooling and all of that. So I see that there's going to be a shift. You see some big companies talking about, big companies and small companies, you know, are we going to go back? Are we going to keep all of our office space? Is it more efficient to have people working from home? Do people prefer it? Does it allow more flexibility? And so I believe that there'll be a shift, some level of shift around real estate going forward. I've actually already been virtual for quite a while. But I have spent most of my time in this current job, about half of it traveling. So that part I think will shift as well. I think we will continue to see more people working from home if they have that luxury in the way that their job is set up, which of course not all people have. But I believe that our business travel will be reduced overall, and that provides tremendous opportunities for collaboration software, whether it's, you know, VR, AR, you know, something with internet, you know, online. So I see tremendous opportunities there. I'm not a parent, but from what I'm hearing from parents, it doesn't sound like schooling from home is what most people want to keep. I mean, obviously there's lots of people who do homeschooling anyway, but I don't know that we'll see as much of an uptick in that. But certainly, you know, and on the enterprise training side and on the aspects where having that spatial modeling I talked about earlier, like, you know, medical anatomy and other parts, I do see that continuing. So I think lots of shifts. And the other thing that I think is interesting, and I think what we don't, it's the TBD, we don't know yet. You know, the one thing is, when do we start going back to restaurants in some numbers, or to movie theaters or venues in some numbers? Another thing is, you know, when do we go back in huge numbers? So does that create opportunity around smaller, more intimate pop-ups of you know, 10 people being entertained, and you know, thinking about, you know, more about pod entertainment? And so I think there are some interesting opportunities for, you know, for digital Hollywood and for those of us working in that storytelling environment to continue in that vein. Well, because there's the aspect of, you know, the vaccine coming and the threat and all of that, but then there's also, you know, how people get accustomed to behaving, and will that actually cause a shift? TBD.
Yeah. Let me ask a question from the audience, which is a fun question. It's like, what AR, VR skill have you kind of picked up or gotten to do more of since you're like not commuting and you're not going out for drinks with colleagues, etc.? Is there like a dirty little like, oh, this is such a pleasure, I get to do this now because I have more time?
I will say that my Beat Saber game is on point right now.
Nice. Okay.
I will say I'm playing
like in that interim 5 minutes, I can get in there.
Yeah, mine is along those similar lines. I've been doing a 30-day supernatural challenge. I'm on day 19, I think. So my VR exercise is on point also. And then, you know, there's a great group of XR Social Club that meets every Wednesday night. People who I've seen in the chat who meet up there every Wednesday night to experience the social platforms together and be connected. And in the pre-pandemic world, I usually couldn't come because I was at a dinner or at an event, or I was always somewhere and busy. But somehow my calendar has remarkably cleared at Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Pacific, and so I've been able to make it almost every Wednesday since we've started. So.
I think for me, I don't necessarily have much spare time with the kids. I think it's less time. I will say though, what's been really exciting in the moments where I have thought and is digging into how game engine technology is still just advancing like bananas. Like obviously what we just saw Epic announce with their upcoming Unreal launch. And so for me, I've been digging a lot into artists, like understanding the talent pool that's out there, and really kind of and seeing people who are doing interesting things and kind of building the network that way. And then for me, I'm just always sharpening, trying to understand how this works in web. And because that's obviously the opportunity for scale. So, but other than that, you got the Peloton. I'm trying to, try and stick it in. Got a 20-minute ride in every now and again. But yeah.
And I think your Snapchat game is pretty strong right now with your kids too, right?
I'm on Insta, but yeah, I'm not as much on the Snap. But it's not for the games to play with them and stuff and do filters for sure. Actually, it's funny. I was going to turn on while I was trying to fix my audio. I accidentally turned on Snap camera. I was like, I don't know what my last filter was, so I didn't want to.
Oh, that would have been a treat for us. No, I'm disappointed. Now I want to do another panel with you for sure. All right. Hey, Nigel, can you give a 1 minute?
And I think this is a really.
I was going to ask Nigel just to give a 30-second on what did Epic just release, right? So not everyone may be aware of just how powerful that is.
Well, they just launched their next edition of Unreal. They showcased a demo on the PS5, the upcoming device. Maybe we can throw a link in the chat as well. But visually, it was just astounding. It was taking things such as like the Quixel assets, which are these really high fidelity, high resolution scans of environments, and not optimizing them, which is I'm eager to dig in and see how. But that's great. Like it's coming from feature animation. At DreamWorks we would there's all these terms, like there's literally whole departments for conditioning, getting one asset from one department into another, and you have a McDonald's commercial, you create another one. There's a game, and it's like millions and millions of dollars put into getting assets optimized for various platforms. And I think we're getting to a world where real-time content is getting to that fidelity, that quality that we want, that we expect out of a traditional post-render process, while also having to create the asset potentially once and have it live everywhere. Proof will be in the pudding, but it's looking amazing. Like what they showcase is, again, it's pretty exciting, and definitely eager to get my hands on it.
Thank you. Joanna, what were you going to say?
I was going to throw the question back to you, Angela. I know that, but both, what you've been doing, because I know you've been doing some Half-Life Alyx and some other really great stuff during this time. But also, when you mentioned the 2 years, I wanted to see if you could talk more about the AR investment you did, because I think it's really exciting and full-on next-level tech to share with everybody.
So my dirty pleasure or my secret pleasure is just playing Half-Life. I finished it yesterday, and it was just like so much fun. And I got my daughter. It's like I cannot get my daughters to play video games with me or VR things or AR things. But I'm just happy with at least board games. That's where I'm at with them, even though they're teenagers. But maybe that's okay. With Mojo Vision, we've got to go through FDA approval, so we've got time in terms of working on that. But what I've seen has just been incredible. And actually, this brings up another question I want to bring up to the panel, which is that, what's the next inflection point? Is it a contact lens? Is it 5G? Is it a better processor from Intel? What is it? We're all excited. We're all going to have the latest gadget, right? Whenever it comes out, I assume, just because we're so involved in it, it's our jobs. But what's going to make it more tenable for, what's going to be like, wow, of course I have to have this, because it's a capacitive touch screen. This is so much better than, tapping in on my BlackBerry with an actual physical key. Now I could actually do something with my finger. When's that moment, and what's the technology that's holding us back? Is it the hardware form factor? Is it the processor? Is it the 5G? Is it WebOS, Nigel? It doesn't have to be anything insane.
For me, I think honestly it's a combination of it all, and I know that's a bit of a cop out. Obviously, me being on the Verizon side, network is key. I just spent, unfortunately, I'm not in a 5G zone yet in LA, the part of LA I'm at. I sure wish I was in a work from home environment where everyone is on my network, whether it be homeschooling and things like that. But I think if I can answer on the network side, it's hugely important. If you just think about just the amount of data you need to transfer to get the fidelity and the quality that you want out of content. As amazing, and again, this is not as amazing as that Unreal demo that Jonathan, thank you for sharing it on the link here, is, I need to be, that's a lot of data still that we need to get to devices. And if there's an opportunity of really having real-time experiences like that, the network is key. And then I think the latency of that is also key, because even if I'm getting all of this data, I need to be able to interact with it the way I'm interacting. And even the subtle lag that we may have here, can be detrimental to, to experiences. So, network is certainly important, but scale is also equally important. That's why we've really doubled down on web for the Verizon Media side of things, because we, when you have these closed off environments, which are great, again, Snap is awesome, Facebook, and I think they're amazing environments. However, not everyone is on those environments, and you want to be able to share with just a simple link this experience. And I think that's regardless of, where in the world you are or what platform you're on, and because we're all on the web. And so that is really how we achieve that level of scale. So for me, that network and scale combo is just going to, if I can share, just send you if that link that Jonathan posted was an actual environment I could just jump into right now, and I didn't have to download anything, or, that'd be amazing, right? And I think that is the next step for that.
I was going to poke on content delivery as well, in terms of getting these incredibly rich experiences onto device, and both the promise of infrastructure improvements in wireless networks with 5G, but also the possibilities of remote rendering. I mean, Microsoft was just talking about some of their announcements around remote rendering with Azure. And I think that the combination of those things, plus, on-device silicon, right? But where are we doing all of this processing such that people can interact in real time with really rich environments, is kind of the piece that's coming up on multiple fronts. And I think that's really exciting from our perspective. In Intel Studios, we've made a lot of investments ourselves in getting really rich experiences onto device. A lot of what's enabling the Soul and Science application that we'll release in about a month is actually compression techniques that we developed internally, because they just aren't out there for volumetric content. And so we have some brilliant engineers who have really pioneered new techniques to get content onto device. And I think there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. I think everyone is tackling their own triangle, and my hope is to be able to put a lot of it together and bring it so that people can start experiencing even more content kind of in ways, like Nigel said, that are easily accessible for the audience.
I think go ahead, Joanna.
Saying that we certainly agree that it's a lot of different factors coming together, and obviously a lot of us on this panel are coming from companies that work closely together. I mean, I think on the one aspect of the hardware side, we're definitely all excited for the contact lenses. I think the first market is people who are visual impaired, so it's not the overall broad market. But in terms when we have our smart glasses that look as cool as Nigel's do, but have all the power and the functionality of the current VR AR headsets, something like what the Bose AR glasses look like, but with a full functionality, that's going to be a really amazing pivot moment. And somebody on here had asked, going outside these days requires all these different decision points, and so where do how do you see AR being able to help with that? And so some of it, if you think about it, is maybe a little too privacy invasive for our culture, although our culture always shifts, and some of the things that we do today with organizations like Facebook and others, are things that way back 10, 15 years ago we wouldn't as a society have felt comfortable with. And so thinking about how we'll be able to use these smart glasses to take us on a path that we know is safe, or to track and trace. And so I think on one, that those are going to be very functional. and enable us to do all the things that probably the internet enables us to do today, plus many other things that we're still coming up with. That I'm super excited about, and having it be two-way, not just the information flowing from system to you, but that there's information flowing back. And so some of the investments and the companies are doing around bioanalytics are really exciting as well.
Yeah, those learnings, John, are really important, right? That two-way system, you need that. You want those learnings, so I know not to walk this way, or I know not to, whatever those things are. So yeah, that whether it be biofeedback or ways like feedback is critical.
Yeah, I think I've just making the assumption that we've been talking a lot about head-mounted displays, right? Whatever form factor. What do you think about holograms, right? Like a display at a window shop. And I'm maybe being too optimistic, right? But in a year and a half, or 2 years, we have vaccines. There's not the safety concerns, right? So let's assume I'm being even Panglossian. What do you think about the role of, just that beautiful window display in the LBE shop, right? It's a hologram you're fighting against, and you're not having to kind of, walk around with the headset on. It's actually like a field of holograms.
Actually, one of my favorite non-head-mounted display hologram applications right now comes back to Joanna's point around healthcare. Glass has an incredible partnership together with Schrödinger to design new molecular formulas for pharmaceuticals with all holographic technology. And I think, the more those displays become kind of something that multiple people have seen, frankly, like there's so few of them out there that are effective and are not just a Pepper's Ghost. I think we'll find more and more applications. To me right now, like a mannequin also does a shockingly good job, like, and is really low tech and doesn't require bandwidth. So I think, I'm not sure. I think that the holographic world is coming. Certainly, I'm probably on a little bit longer range than 2 years.
Probably, yeah.
I think the digital presence element is really exciting. I know you said the question is forgetting this world, but right now I'm on this call with you, and everyone's a flat 2D image, right, and a text. But I do think there's I agree, Vicky. I think it is a bit further out. Or sorry, Sarah. I think it's. But I think the idea of having those holograms in the space is really important for that. Like, I just wish I could see my mother who's in Ireland right now as a hologram, right? That type of thing, and having that context with her would be really important and special. And actually, something I would, as you said, seeing a hologram of clothing moving in a store. I don't know if that's a value proposition that the store will find as fruitful as just, as you said, a mannequin. But for me at home or even, engaging, or if it's concerts, entertainment and things like that, I think that would be amazing. So,
yeah. And then, Joanna, if you don't want to pile in, but otherwise, what about avatars, right? They're becoming more and more popular, right? In terms of just like, wow, like I just stumbled across another avatar with 1 million Twitter followers, right? It's like, what? How many? We're 10 million. The role of them,
it's a really interesting space, and obviously the avatars as influencers, as well as us becoming more and more used to visualizing ourselves as avatars. We're Bitmoji, and then Snap, Facebook just released their new ones. I think will be interesting to see. The expectation would be they would take those into the virtual world or the augmented world, but we will see. Excited.
Yeah, I think look, we just saw Lil Miquela get signed by CAA. We just saw Travis Scott do his concert. I think there's been a lot of companies that have been digging into whether it's really, like even Jackie Chan, right, has a mocap stage in his house because he wants to be able to capture himself daily so he can live forever in movies, type of thing. There's different reasons and different desires for the avatar world. But I do think, like, if I just focus in on the Travis Scott particular element, right, the opportunity to show up in many different areas and really engage with an audience and scale that and gain financial revenue from that, as well as have that presence, I think is hugely is a massive. And then I think the flip side of that, if we're thinking about digital characters that don't exist, like a little Michaela, the brand safety element of that is really enticing to companies, more than they probably admit. But whenever they go behind a human, there's this risk, right? And you can think of many companies that have, and so I think that there's going to be just raw investment in that side of it. And I think the quality, like, again, whether it's the stylized version of it, like in Fortnite, or the photoreal recreations of something more like a little Michaela, that's going to change and be, VTubers are massive in Asia as is, and they're very, more leaning into anime style, and people just want to engage with these characters. So I think across the board, whether it's celebrities wanting digitized versions of themselves or brand new logos and campaigns for companies, this is continued. It's a huge growth market. It's going to keep going. So, yeah.
Angelo, I need to pop off. I think I told you I needed to get off about 5 minutes early. So Thank you all. We have some really, really exciting things happening next week. So we're going to be at AWE both Wednesday and Thursday with some exciting happenings. We're having an AltSpace event, HP, together with Microsoft next Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific. So, and then we'll have some fun announcements coming on our HP Instagram and lots of good stuff happening. Thanks so much for everyone. I'll post my information here if anyone wants to follow up later. Have a good Memorial Day weekend, and great to be here with you all.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you. Can I put a link with the AWE events? Yes. Okay. I'll do that right before.
Thanks. And Sarah and Nigel, as the filmmakers, there's a couple of questions from Tiago about, are there known tools available for XR and traditional film immersion?
So I actually think that something that Nigel talked about earlier, which was the Unreal announcements, related really close to this. And then if you think about the current boom in virtual production, those things hanging together, plus the promise of volumetric capture, starts bringing to reality a lot faster than I think many have expected, the possibility of making a film that you can then also walk into. So some of those toolkits are already out there, right? There's lots of folks looking at volumetric filmmaking. If you haven't seen Diego Perleski's TED Talk on volumetric filmmaking, I would point you at that, at kind of the opportunities there. Absolutely, Unreal Engine, Unity as well has been making really huge progress on some of their cinematic tools, and just that world of creating immersive films is accelerating faster than I think many of us expected because of some of the trends in virtual production. So that's my 2 cents on that, is kind of get your hands on a toolkit that looks at real time.
1000% agree with you, Sarah. I think, it was happening before the pandemic. Game engine, you obviously see plenty of things like, how the Lion King was created, etc. But the realities of it now, more than, if we're thinking about onboarding physical, bringing in a talent, you're going to, crowds, green, environments, locations, all these things that we may have taken even for granted are not anymore. But if you're not familiar with game engine and real time in any way, whether Unity or Unreal, both are amazing, and some native as well. I think that's really important. And tying it back to VolCap, and things like that is where we will see a huge advancement in creating stories, interesting stories.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have time for one more question. I want to wrap up with Sarah's, and I've been told I have 3 minutes precisely, so you guys have to do nuggets. What can we do as an industry to kind of, I don't want to say take advantage, but like not lose momentum, right? A lot of times technologies get stuck in this it's going to be in the chief innovation officer, right? But it doesn't make it down to the P&L, to the person who actually has to make money out of it, to incorporate it into the process. And it can be something super simple, like Apprentice.io. That's simple, right? It's just like meat and potatoes. We're going to help a pharmaceutical company do a better job, or we're going to help train a retail worker. right? So what can we do that we just don't have this like sizzle and bang, and then things go back to normal, and then we kind of recede back, and AR, VR, and MR, takes another X years to develop. So this was something that Sarah and I had talked about, and it was her question.
Yeah, I thought a little bit more about it too, and I think what we're actually doing here is fundamentally a big part of that being able to connect with each other despite the fact that we're not seeing people in person at various events around the world. To me, we talked about how integrated these technologies have to be in order to be successful, and being able to develop those partnerships and really strong technology solutions across multiple areas is where I see really big potential. So, and where I've actually seen some really exciting and developments. ConXR and Tribeca just announced they're going to be trying to push for a virtual showcase in the Museum of Other Realities. I think that efforts like that, where someone's shooting the moon, that is totally a moonshot for anyone who isn't sure. That's gonna be a really hard thing to pull off. But I'm inspired by the fact that people are getting together, and would encourage folks to reach out and keep momentum going as we work through this and sit in our living rooms.
Nigel, 30 seconds of thoughts.
Look, I think we're not going to forget what we're going through right now. So I think we're going to take all of those lessons learned into everything we do. There's going to be, we have this now. This is in our zeitgeist. This is cultural. So yeah, how we approach and how we do things is going to fundamentally change. So sorry.
All right. No, it's fine. Thank you both so much. It was really wonderful to have this conversation with you all.
Fantastic moderating, Angelo. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy. Like I said, you guys know more about this than I do, so it was very selfish and self-serving. I got to learn from you guys so much. So thank you all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.